LiberalViewer presents.
So, welcome to the April 29th edition of LiberalViewer Sunday Live Clip Roundup. Thanks for joining me. I've picked out the weekend's dozen best, most newsworthy clips for what should be a really informative, educational, fair use media criticism and political analysis show for you all tonight. The political comedy sources tonight will be first a couple clips from Michelle Wolf on last night's White House Correspondents' dinner, which has been very controversial apparently, which I will discuss with you right in the first couple clips. Plus, I'll have a real Time with Bill Maher monologue clip from last Friday's HBO Real Time with Bill Maher. But most of my clips, as usual, come from the Sunday morning news analysis shows from the big five corporate outlets of ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and Fox News, the so-called corporate media here in the United States. You can see the topic I'm covering, or I've just called it Trump, Korea, Comedy, and Chaos, which is sort of a broad topic I haven't really described, but I think you'll catch it along the way, especially based on the news summaries. But as promised here, I did want to start with a couple clips from Michelle Wolf at the White House Correspondents' dinner that don't really fit completely into the topics that I've put in the video description. In fact, if you go to my YouTube channel and you look at the most viewed videos on my channel, almost 10% of my views, or maybe even more than 10%, I haven't looked lately, come from a video called David Letterman Makes Fun of Bush in Front of Bush, which was about the White House Correspondents' dinner, where they showed a video of David Letterman doing a top 10 list. And I actually criticized David Letterman's top 10 list, making fun of Bush, because it was really saying, you know, it was like malapropisms where he said the wrong word, or where he was like awkward, did like klutzy things, and it didn't really, you know, it wasn't really speaking truth to power, which is how I judge comedians who go to the White House Correspondents' dinner, at least, especially when the president was also there for 20 years before Donald Trump came along. But I wanted to show you first one of my favorite jokes, and then one of the most controversial jokes, and I'll discuss my analysis of Michelle Wolf's White House Correspondents' dinner performance also. But here's one of my favorite jokes attacking the media, which is the powerful people in the room, mostly, although Sarah Huckabee Sanders, that's the controversial one that I'll show second. She's also a powerful person in the room. But here's the attack on the media that I especially liked over here.
You guys are obsessed with Trump. Did you used to date him? Because you pretend like you hate him, but I think you love him. I think what no one in this room wants to admit is that Trump has helped all of you. He couldn't sell steaks or vodka or water or college or ties or Eric. But he has helped you. He's helped you sell your papers and your books and your TV. You helped create this monster, and now you're profiting off of him. And if you're gonna profit off of Trump, you should at least give him some money, because he doesn't have any. Trump is so broke, he grabs pussies because he thinks there might be loose change in them.
Now, if you're seeing all the people saying how everyone was so offended in the room there, that was almost the very end. And you can see the entire, I put a link down in the video description to the C-SPAN video on YouTube that I took that clip from, and you can watch the entire thing yourself if you haven't seen it already. And that's from the very end. And you notice there was a routine she did earlier about how broke is Trump, how, you know, Trump is so broke, how broke is he? And you heard she was still getting, you know, callbacks from the audience there, so they couldn't have been all that offended. But apparently the one that's drawn the most criticism is the set she did on Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who was sitting right there, so and is a very powerful member of the Trump administration. A couple things. They claim that she attacked her looks for comparing her to actress Ann Dowd, who she kind of looks like, but she didn't say anything negative about her look. Ann Dowd, I always remember her as Kim Kelly's mom on Freaks and Geeks, which is one of my all-time favorite shows, and a lot of stars, and both in front of and behind the camera came out of Freaks and Geeks. But Ann Dowd is also on The Handmaid's Tale and plays Aunt Lydia, and you'll see in this clip that is that attacking her looks. I guess if you think it's only attacking her looks if you think there's something wrong with the way Ann Dowd looks, maybe. I mean, there is something of a resemblance, and then the whole smoky eye thing. I don't know. Well, I'll show you. This is 1 minute and 33 seconds. I'll show it to you, and then we'll talk about it after we watch together here.
And of course, we have Sarah Huckabee Sanders. We are graced with Sarah's presence tonight. I have to say, I'm a little starstruck. I love you as Aunt Lydia on The Handmaid's Tale. Mike Pence, if you haven't seen it, you would love it. Every time Sarah steps up to the podium, I get excited because I'm not really sure what we're gonna get. You know, a press briefing, a bunch of lies, or divided into softball teams. It's shirts and skins, and this time don't be such a little bitch, Jim Acosta. I actually really like Sarah. I think she's very resourceful. Like, she burns facts, and then she uses that ash to create a perfect smoky eye. Like, maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's lies. It's probably lies. And I'm never really sure what to call Sarah Huckabee Sanders. You know, is it Sarah Sanders? Is it Sarah Huckabee Sanders? Is it Cousin Huckabee? Is it Auntie Huckabee Sanders? Like, what's Uncle Tom but for white women who disappoint other white women? Oh, I know, Aunt Coulter.
So that was like the most controversial joke, apparently, or set of jokes from Michelle Wolf. Although I guess there was an abortion joke in there that some people found offensive, and some conservatives walked out. But first, Donald Trump didn't show up. He was at this rally in Washington Township, Michigan, that I'll show you some clips from later in the news summaries. But he specifically sent Sarah Huckabee Sanders there to sit, and Kellyanne Conway, who also got roasted, I suppose. But they're all very powerful people in the Trump administration. And first, I watched that several times now, and I don't think she's really attacking Sarah Huckabee Sanders for her looks there. There's the whole Uncle Tom thing, and I actually posted a tweet response on Twitter earlier to my old YouTube friend Lee Doran, who's a conservative who doesn't make YouTube videos anymore, I guess, but he has quite a Twitter following, and he was criticizing Michelle Wolf's performance and saying, among other things, that Uncle Tom comment was racist. And I don't know. I mean, I can see how it can be racist in some way to call, like, black conservatives Uncle Toms, because you're, like, assuming that someone has to have certain political beliefs just based on their race. And that, I mean, that's like the whole Kanye West thing this last week, which did get brought up on Face the Nation, but I'm not going to show a clip of that. I don't want to talk about Kanye West, but the Uncle Tom thing, I mean, it's racist maybe if you call a black conservative an Uncle Tom, because, like I said, you have some stereotype of the politics that blacks are supposed to have. But if someone is an actual, like, race traitor, and I mean, that's what Uncle Tom means, someone who, like, works with the whites to turn in the blacks or to hurt the blacks or whatever. But that actually wouldn't be racist, although I haven't heard it used that way. But in a way, it's kind of, I think, the way Michelle Wolf was using it in terms of what Sarah Huckabee Sanders does, which is that she is a woman defending a misogynist who, you know, attacks women all the time, verbally has, like, 19 women claiming that he sexually harassed, almost to the point, you know, sexually assaulted them. And it's verified, of course, by the Access Hollywood Billy Bush tape. That's what he actually claims that he does. So Sarah Huckabee Sanders is a woman who's defending all that on a daily basis in a very dishonest way, especially when that issue comes up over and over again, you know, the whole Stormy Daniels thing. And so, although the one criticism I would have of what Michelle Wolf said there about how she's a white woman who disappoints other white women, well, I hate to tell you, white women voted for Donald Trump. Not all women, but if you look at just white women, in fact, if you look at just white anything, they voted for Donald Trump. That's one of the things I learned from this Ta-Nehisi Coates book here, We Were 8 Years in Power, which I'm just finishing up. Finishing up the very last essay about how Trump is the first white president, which is Ta-Nehisi Coates' argument that Trump is a reaction to the black presidency of Barack Obama, which caused the whole Trump phenomenon. And so he's like the first president who is like explicitly white and coming in to be white. And one of the facts that he uses is that if you look at pretty much every demographic, if you put white next to it, Trump won that demographic. White women, poor whites, people who make below 50,000, between 50,000 and 150,000, 150,000 and above, all sorts, whites with college degrees, whites without college degrees. If white is in there, Trump pretty much won it. And and that includes white women. Trump won white women. So I don't know how exactly, since Trump won white women, how can, I don't know, maybe defending misogyny still offends some of the white women who voted for Trump is, I guess that would be the only defense. But you can let me know what you think down in the comments section. And before I finish the Michelle Wolf clips, I have to say I've been really disappointed with, I talk about the big five corporate outlets of ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and Fox News, the so-called corporate media here in the United States, in my intro all the time. Well, I watched all five of the big corporate outlets, and there was not one person who defended Michelle Wolf's stand-up routine, and there was a lot of people who criticized her for being too crass, too R-rated, or whatever, and I just don't get that criticism. I think she did a great job. I mean, there was definitely crassness in there. I've seen Michelle Wolf back from The Daily Show. I watched her stand-up routine. I think it was on Netflix, or was it HBO? I can't even remember anymore, but I thought it was funny. I thought it was speaking truth to power, which, as I said beforehand, is how I judge these things. She spoke truth to the powerful people like Sarah Huckabee Sanders and the media. She attacked even the Democrats. So you can let me know what you think down in the comment section. But the one clip I wanted to show that is kind of representative, this is from Fox News Sunday, where they did this little clip of Kim Jong-un and then Donald Trump, and then you'll see Chris Wallace's comment briefly on the White House Correspondents' dinner, which, believe it or not, is pretty typical of the way all the journalists, all the media people who felt, great umbrage at being ridiculed by Michelle Wolf. Well, here's kind of how, Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday isn't an outlier in this regard over here.
We will make sure that the agreement we have reached, which the people of the Korean Peninsula and the world are watching, does not fulfill the unfortunate history of unfulfilled promises.
One of the fake news groups this morning, they were saying, what do you think President Trump had to do with it? I'll tell you what. How about everything?
I think he was probably funnier than the comedian at the White House Correspondents' dinner. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un pledging this time.
Funnier than the comedian at the White House Correspondents' dinner. Yeah, I was surprised to see people, like Andrea Mitchell from MSNBC and NBC News was saying that Michelle Wolf owes Sarah Huckabee Sanders an apology. Mika Brzezinski from Morning Joe also attacking, did I say Michelle Obama? I meant Michelle Wolf. I keep almost saying Michelle Obama in my head. I think I might have said it once there, but I apologize for that. Anyway, I'm just really disappointed in the elite media people for having such a lack of understanding of what Michelle Wolf was doing in that stand-up routine. So if you can disagree with me, of course, down in the comment section if you disagree. But before I get to the news summaries, I did want to show a couple minutes of Bill Maher's monologue. You know, I forgot to say, down in the video description, you can find a link to the full, I mentioned the full Michelle Wolf stand-up routine. Also down in the video description is the full Bill Maher monologue. There's also my clip list. If you want to see my dozen clips and my notes to myself, which have typos because I'm usually like watching TV while I type them, and a lot of the notes only make sense to me, but maybe they make some sense to you, and they should at least tell you who's speaking in the clip and where the clip is from. So this clip is from HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher last Friday. It's 2 minutes from the monologue, basically about the chaos in the Trump administration, from the withdrawal of the nomination to be Secretary of the Veterans Administration, Ronnie Jackson, to Trump going on Fox and Friends and ranting for like 30 minutes and even making the Fox and Friends hosts uncomfortable, as Bill Maher joked about for 2 minutes over in this clip.
Appointment went sour. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, you know Dr. Ronnie Jackson, yeah. He's the physician to the president. We have one of those in this country, and he's been that way for a long time. He was there for Obama, George Bush. We didn't know a lot about Dr. Ronnie Jackson before, but then when Trump became president, Dr. Ronnie gave him his physical, remember that, and said he was in great shape and not obese at all. And we all said, is this guy high? And yes, he apparently has been very high. Apparently, he has been handing out drugs so indiscriminately, his nickname was the Candy Man. Okay, A, how does a guy like this get to be the physician to the president? And B, is he still accepting patients? I'm asking for a friend. But Dr. Ronnie said these false allegations, he's stepping down. He's not going to take the job at the VA, which what he was put up for. He said these are allegations are false, and they've become a distraction to the president. A distraction to this president? All he does is golf, watch TV, and eat. How could there be a distraction? Unless you're a sand trap, a commercial, or a chicken bone, you're good. A distraction. Yeah, distraction. He's calling Fox and Friends in the morning. Did you see that? Did you see him prank call Fox and Friends yesterday? Oh, my God. He babbled like Rain Man ate a bag of Coke. I mean, the three... This is where we are in this country. The three hosts of Fox and Friends looked very worried. Really. They were like, this is too stupid for us, and we're the hosts of Fox and Friends.
So, of course, as someone who made all those Fox News bias videos, I appreciate Bill Maher making fun of Fox and Friends, and I watched that Donald Trump interview on Fox and Friends, and there are a lot of hilarious moments, especially the end where they say, well, we know you're real busy, so we know you have a million things to do, so we're going to let you go. It's like trying to get somebody off the phone, and it was anyway, that was commented on several times and on the real news media, and I thought, that some of those jokes were mildly funny. I didn't think any of those jokes were as funny as the ones I showed from Michelle Wolf. And actually, if you watch the entire Bill Maher monologue, he spends, and you can kind of see it in the title. I can't remember, what was the title of the Bill Maher monologue, and it's called Handsy Across America, because he's making fun of Donald Trump holding hands with Emmanuel Macron, and it's almost like homophobic jokes about they're like gay for each other. I don't know. I mean, I don't think Bill Maher's really homophobic, but I don't know. It's almost to the point of the Joy Reid blogs. I don't know if you've been following that whole controversy. I'm not covering that. I didn't take any clips from AM Joy, though I'm a big fan of Joy Reid and AM Joy, but I'm also disappointed, talking about disappointment in the media, with the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I'm also kind of disappointed with Joy Reid for, apologizing while at the same time not admitting, she's still saying she was hacked, or she doesn't believe she wrote, or it was kind of a bizarre thing. But now I'm going off on a big tangent, and I want to get to the actual news clips. The first one is NBC's Meet the Press. As usual, they do the most thorough news reporting on what happened this week. What's going on with North and South Korea, developments in the Russia investigation. My only criticism of this NBC Meet the Press news summary is that they really focus on James Comey at the beginning and at the end for no apparent reason other than the fact that Chuck Todd finally got his interview with James Comey, and I'll show a clip of James Comey all the way at the end responding to a clip I showed from Senator Susan Collins of Maine last week. But like I said, that's the last clip, except for, I have a bonus Sandy clip for the Sandy fans out there, where for all of you who want to tell Sandy she's a good puppy, you will get to see how Sandy responds to being called a good puppy. But that's all the way at the end, past James Comey, for the last Meet the Press clip. This is the first Meet the Press clip where, like I said, it's a good news summary except for the over-focus on James Comey because he's their guest, which I will discuss with you after we watch that 3-minute, 44-second clip together over here.
Good Sunday morning. From the moment James Comey first told President-elect Trump about the Steele dossier, to their awkward embrace 2 weeks later at the White House, to their dinner where Comey claims the president asked for his loyalty, Donald Trump and James Comey have had a difficult and adversarial relationship. The president fired Comey in May of last year by his own admission over, quote, this Russia thing. And ever since then, this Russia thing has fueled their mutual contempt. Comey wrote in his book, A Higher Loyalty, that this president is unethical and untethered to truth and institutional values. His leadership is transactional, ego-driven, and about personal loyalty. Never afraid to fight back, President Trump has tweeted that Comey is a proven leaker and liar, that he should be prosecuted, that he is an untruthful slimeball, and that it was his great honor to fire him. This morning, James Comey joined me for a wide-ranging interview where we touched on many issues, including President Trump's credibility, the Steele dossier, and the Hillary Clinton email investigation. And just last night at a campaign-style event in Michigan, we were reminded once again that Comey is never far from the president's mind.
You watch Comey, and you watch the way he lies.
The president lashing out at his former FBI director at a political rally in Macomb County, Michigan last night.
I did you a great favor when I fired this guy. I tell you, I did you a great favor. Because when you look at what was going on at the top of the FBI, it is a disgrace, and everybody in this room understands it.
On a week marked by a diplomatic breakthrough between the leaders of North and South Korea and by high-stakes diplomacy at home, the president spent much of his time consumed by the Mueller probe.
What we really should do is get on with our lives and get on with a lot of things.
But the president is having a hard time moving on. On Thursday morning, he made a 30-minute call to Fox's morning show.
I watched Leakin' Lion Comey last night, and I hated to do it.
On Friday morning, after that historic handshake between the leaders of North and South Korea, the president started his day not by heralding peace talks, but by renewing his attacks on Comey, tweeting, he's either very sick or very dumb. During that phoner on Fox, the president rushed to distance himself from his personal lawyer and confidant, Michael Cohen.
Michael is in business. He's really a businessman, a fairly big business as I understand it. I don't know his business, but this doesn't have to do with me. Michael is a businessman. He's got a business. I would say probably the big thing is his business, and they're looking at something having to do with his business. I have nothing to do with his business.
In addition to being the president's personal attorney, Cohen is an executive vice president at the Trump Organization. Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee released results of their own investigation into Russian influence in the 2016 election, declaring they did not find any evidence of collusion, conspiracy, or coordination between the Trump campaign and the Russians.
I was very honored by the report. It was totally conclusive, strong, powerful. Many things said that nobody knew about.
Very political report, a document that could have been written by the White House.
Trump's fixation on his fired FBI director has persisted since Comey's dismissal nearly a year ago.
What about Comey? Do you watch him on the interviews? What about Comey?
The president suggested he may intervene again.
If our Justice Department was doing the right thing, they'd be a lot tougher right now on those people, because there's tremendous crime and corruption on the other side.
And joining me now is the former director of the FBI, James.
So, like I said, joining him there is James Comey, and I will have a clip at the end before the bonus Sandy clip of James Comey, but I haven't read his book yet. You can see his, you can see his book right here, A Higher Loyalty. It's behind me, but there are a couple books back here that I still haven't read, and so I can't really comment on the content of the book. But like I said, I thought that that NBC Meet the Press clip concentrated a little bit too much on James Comey just because he was available for them to interview. That's actually the first of his interviews on the Sunday morning news analysis shows, although he's been on so many other shows, and he did that town hall on CNN earlier this week that seems to have upset Donald Trump, which is something he was railing about in that Washington Township, Michigan rally that he went to instead of going to the White House Correspondents' dinner that they showed a brief clip of. And I think there's a clip of that also in the ABC This Week with George Stephanopoulos introduction, which also, Meet the Press did not mention the White House Correspondents' dinner at all. I showed how Fox News Sunday mentioned it, and that was one of a couple places. No one really defended Michelle Wolf. I think it's briefly mentioned, if I have this right, over in the ABC News Summary. No, I'm sorry, I don't have that right. I think it's... Which one has the White House Correspondents? Oh, it's the next one from CNN State of the Union. Sorry, but this is ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos talking about how... in Michigan, Trump was really unrestrained, and then also talks about some of the problems that Trump's been having, the chaos part of my title, and then I'll get to the CNN State of the Union intro that included the White House Correspondents' dinner. But here's ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos, actually hosted by White House correspondent for ABC, Jonathan Karl, who he wasn't hosting, but I saw him like up on the dais at the White House Correspondents' dinner, so... and he also was not very happy with what Michelle Wolf said. None of the elite media people were, but here's how he summarized the week for Trump in this clip.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us this Sunday. In Michigan last night, President Trump was unfiltered and unrestrained, capping off a turbulent week of nomination drama, legal twists, and foreign dignitaries at the White House. But it was the meeting between North and South Korea's leaders that captured the world's attention. North Korea's Kim Jong-un and South Korea's President Moon taking the first steps on what may be an historic journey. You see Kim here shaking hands with the South Korean leader, crossing into South Korean soil, and the two of them crossing back to North Korea hand in hand. A few small steps, a giant symbolic gesture. Both leaders pledged to formally end the Korean War, sealing their joint declaration with a hug and then appearing together in front of the press. President Trump hailed the meeting as a major breakthrough that he made possible. He's also touting Mike Pompeo's secret meeting with Kim Jong-un. The White House released these photos of that meeting to pave the way for the upcoming summit between Kim and President Trump. There are a lot of questions about that meeting. The biggest, will it lead to the kind of breakthrough that has eluded President Trump's predecessors? Late yesterday, we talked to Mike Pompeo in his first interview as Secretary of State.
And I will have a clip from that Mike Pompeo interview on ABC's This Week, which I thought was interesting. It was kind of weird because I think there was like some sort of delay, satellite delay, because he was doing the interview from Saudi Arabia. But I will show a clip from it a little bit later. By the way, I noticed I was reading the live comments along the way, that I already have several Super Chat contributions, which really helps with the lack of advertising revenue I get these days from YouTube. Here's the first, is it 4 over here? So thanks to all those Super Chat contributors so far. I read through the live comments while I'm playing the clips, though I have a couple other tasks I have to take care of, like figuring out where I'm going next and what I'm going to say next. Not that Does it seem like I'm prepared to say what the next clip is about? Do I even remember? No, I told you. It's the CNN State of the Union introduction, which is a very brief news summary, shorter than... oh, no, actually, it's about the same length as the ABC This Week with George Stephanopoulos one from Jonathan Karl. Jake Tapper seems kind of tired because he was also at the White House Correspondents' dinner, and he says that the State of the... he always starts off every week saying that the State of the Union is something. This is attempting to rally, which means he's both talking about how he's tired from the White House Correspondents' dinner and also how Donald Trump was at this rally. And then you'll see there's an actual citation to the White House Correspondents' dinner in the news summary. This is 1 minute 23 seconds from CNN State of the Union with Jake Tapper this morning over here.
Hello, I'm Dick Tapper in Washington, where the State of our Union is attempting to rally after a long night. President Trump was in a different Washington last night, holding a campaign event with supporters in Washington, Michigan, instead of attending the annual White House Correspondents Association dinner in Washington, D.C. As members of the press and his administration attempted to honor the First Amendment and journalism, President Trump made use of his freedom of speech, attacking the news media and his political foes, and touting this week's talks between North and South Korea, saying he is not getting enough credit.
They were saying, what do you think President Trump had to do with it? I'll tell you what. Like, how about everything?
President Trump also attacked his latest target, Montana Senator Jon Tester, suggesting that he has dirt on the Democrat.
Well, I know things about Tester that I could say, too. And if I said them, he'd never be elected again.
Before we get to our first guest, I do want to note we did ask the White House to provide us with a representative to join us this morning to discuss North Korea and more. The White House declined our invitation. Joining us now from his home state of Oklahoma.
Though, I guess I showed a lot of clips early in the Trump administration where Jake Tapper would say, oh, we asked for them to send us somebody and they refused to send us somebody. And then they stopped saying that for a while. I don't know, maybe they stopped asking. Sometimes they do get people. Kellyanne Conway and other, who do they have on? Mark Short, the White House legislative director. Thomas Bossert, I think. But anyway, I guess they tried to get someone from the White House, but they didn't get John Bolton, the national security advisor. He was on a couple shows, including CBS's Face the Nation and Fox News Sunday. Those are not including. Those are the two he was on. And I'll show a clip of that in a minute. But I also wanted to show the news summary that was on CBS's Face the Nation with Margaret Brennan. This isn't from the beginning of the show. They went straight to John Bolton, and I'm not going to show a clip of that. The one criticism, I don't know if it was because they were all tired from the White House Correspondents' dinner, but I know I've read in the live comments, some people have this drinking game when I make mistakes and mess up, show the wrong clip or whatever, that people drink, apparently. Well, I think if you were drinking for technical mess-ups on CBS's Face the Nation this morning, you would have had to drink 4 or 5 times. That's true at the beginning of this clip. You'll see they had this, it's not me, there's this weird freeze frame shot of Margaret Brennan. There are a couple other weird things that happened. She tried to show that clip of Donald Trump attacking Senator Tester he's from Montana, right? And she said, oh, we're going to play that soundbite. Oh, and then she waited for a second. Oh, we don't have that soundbite. And she just read the clip herself. There's a weird, like I said, pause at the beginning of this. And then CBS's Face the Nation actually did a fairly good news summary of what's been going on in the Russia investigation with Michael Cohen and some other developments that you saw a little bit in the other news summaries. But this is almost 2 minutes long, and it's the best news summary of what's been going on in the Russia investigation. And then I'll also have a short clip of Margaret Brennan questioning Trey Gowdy on that a little bit later. But here's the Margaret Brennan news summary with a weird glitch at the beginning over here.
Last week, there were several new developments in the multiple investigations related to Russian influence in the 2016 election. Former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani met with special counsel Robert Mueller in his new role as a member of the president's legal team. Giuliani has promised to put pressure on Mueller to end his probe quickly. In a phone interview with Fox, the president reversed himself on whether he'd get involved in his own Justice Department's investigations into allegations that former FBI Director James Comey leaked classified information when Comey gave memos detailing conversations with the president to his attorney and a friend.
I have decided that I won't be involved. I may change my mind at some point because what's going on is a disgrace.
Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee released the results of their investigation into Russian ties to the Trump campaign. Their verdict? No collusion. Committee Democrats released a rival report saying the Republicans refused to investigate all possible leads and accused them of a cover-up. As for the president, he responded to the week's developments in a freewheeling performance before supporters in Michigan last night.
Look at how these politicians have fallen for this junk. Russian collusion. Give me a break. Hey, and what about Comey? Do you watch him on the interviews? What about Comey? What about Comey?
And to hopefully help us answer that question, what about Comey? We turn now to Congressman Trey Gowdy. He is on the House Intelligence and Judiciary Committees and is also head.
So there you see Margaret Brennan introducing Representative Trey Gowdy, and it looks like he actually watched that news summary with her, and that's one of the reasons I show those news summaries is because I think it influences the newsmakers' answers, and so that's an important fair use reason to include news summaries, even though they're not as amenable to a fair use argument as the clips from the newsmaker interviews. But whatever, that's just my own legal analysis of what clips I can use going on in the back of my head that I'm sharing with you as I go through these clips. And I think I might have said that I was going to show the James Comey clip at the end, but I'm looking at my clip list, and the James Comey clip actually comes next from NBC's Meet the Press, and I have a couple Korea clips at the end. John Bolton and Mike Pompeo are the last two clips. And by the way, if you watch the, if you're wondering, the interviewers interviewing John Bolton, the National Security Advisor, he was on Fox News Sunday and CBS's Face the Nation. No one asked any questions of his mustache. His mustache remained unquestioned. I just wanted to point that out. And that will be the second to last clip, will be the John Bolton interview from Fox News Sunday, where he mentioned, well, I'll get to that when I get to it, but I have a big criticism of how Fox News Sunday handled that, that it doesn't really apply to the Face of the Nation interview, as I will explain at the end. But the next clip is actually the James Comey clip that I promised you earlier, although I think I said it would be at the end, where James Comey responds to a clip I showed last week where he was criticized by Susan Collins for cashing in during the interview. And, of course, he was also criticized for not following Justice Department policies that say you're not supposed to talk about you're not supposed to talk about people you decide not to charge, which is what he did with Hillary Clinton. He held that whole July 2016 press conference where he said, I'm not going to charge Hillary Clinton with anything, but she was a naughty, naughty girl. She did very bad, bad, bad things. And that's not what prosecutors are supposed to do, and that doesn't come up here. You'll see it's a brief clip of Susan Collins saying that he's cashing in during the investigation, and you can see James Comey's answer, which I will discuss with you after we watch that almost 2-minute clip together over here.
I'm going to close with this. Susan Collins, last week on the show, I asked her about your book. Here's what she said. I'm curious to get your reaction to what she said.
I cannot imagine why an FBI director would seek to essentially cash in on a book when the investigation is very much alive. He should have waited to do his memoir.
Should you have waited?
I hope she'll read it and see that it's not about the investigation. It's about not even about Donald Trump. It's about something much broader that I thought it was important to talk about now.
I was just going to say, what's the goal for the reader? What do you hope the reader takes away about Donald Trump And what do you hope the reader takes away about the FBI?
I hope the reader takes away that Donald Trump and Barack Obama and George W. Bush and others illustrate something about the importance of values in the life of this country and about what leadership can and should be. And I hope they see the FBI as an institution committed to values and caring deeply about being separate from the political tribes in this country.
Director Comey, I would love to go farther, but there's so many questions you say you can't answer due to this investigation. So I guess it means, can I ask you this? Do you believe that Director Mueller is mindful of the political calendar as he goes through, and that the closer things get to an election, the more investigations can play an outsized role, fair or unfair?
I'm sure he knows all of that. He's definitely attentive to the calendar, and like all good prosecutors, wants to finish as quickly as he can.
Okay. Director Comey, good luck on your book tour. I would say good luck with book sales, but I think based on book sales, you don't need any more luck.
Thank you, Chuck.
You got it. When we come back, I'll talk to the panel.
So that was weird. But at the beginning of that clip, Chuck Todd was asking James Comey about whether he was cashing in, and by the end of the clip, he was congratulating him on his big book sales. By the way, I have my copy of A Higher Loyal. I contributed to those book sales. I have that book, like I said, right here. I haven't had a chance to read it, so I don't really have a basis to criticize James Comey's answer about, oh, that's not what the book's about. But I don't know. I think that pretty much is what the book's about, is the current investigation and the obstruction of justice claim. And like I said last week, I kind of agree with Susan Collins, not just the short clip you saw there, but also her criticism of James Comey for not following Justice Department protocol when it came to the Hillary Clinton email scandal or whatever. Lock her up, you know, that whole thing, whatever. But before I get to the end of the Trump portion, or like the ongoing Trump scandals, and get to my last two North-South Korea peace possibility clips. Oh, Sandy got up here. Oh, are you going to lie back down? I have also a bonus Sandy clip of her lying down and me showing her what a good puppy she is at the end, but she's gotten back up. She looks disturbed. I don't know. Maybe she's disturbed by Margaret Brennan's performance in this next clip, where she lets Trey Gowdy get away with claiming he was like really tough in the House Intelligence Committee investigation of Russia collusion and the whole, you know, that whole investigation. As you saw in one of the previous news summaries, I think it was the CBS Face the Nation one, was the best coverage of how the House Intelligence Committee put out its report this week. But of course, like Adam Schiff from the Democratic side said it was like a political whitewash. And here's Trey Gowdy trying to claim he was really tough on witnesses because he cross-examined Steve Bannon more than anybody. When the transcripts come out, that's going to be apparent to everybody. But what he doesn't say, and what Margaret Brennan never asked him about, is how the House Intelligence Committee never required witnesses to answer questions. Not just Michael Flynn, who does come up here. You know, people who are under criminal investigation and take the fifth. You know, there's nothing the committee can do about that. But people took really weird privileges and they didn't do anything like not executive privilege. But I'm not asserting executive privilege. I'm just saying I won't talk about anything that I talked about with the president. That, you know, that's not a privilege, and the House Intelligence Committee just let people get away with that, let witnesses not show up, and Margaret Brennan doesn't really ask Trey Gowdy about that in the 1-minute 16-second clip I will discuss with you after we watch it together over here.
On the Trump Tower meeting, I was tougher on Steve Bannon than any Democrat was. So when the transcripts come out, I think my fellow citizens are going to see the Republicans did take it seriously. But when all you're interested in is seeing the president indicted, then yeah, that investigation's not going to turn out well from a bipartisan standpoint.
And you never got to interview Michael Flynn, the former National Security Advisor.
We don't get to interview anyone who's currently under indictment. Their lawyers should be fired if they allow us to interview them.
So it's a fair point to make, though, because clearly the Mueller investigation has a broader set of people they're talking to. But the president, when he looks at your report, feels vindicated. Are you saying he should not?
I'll be careful how I phrase this. No report, the best we can do is say what we learned. I can't say what's in the universe of witnesses we have not talked to. And I have always maintained I am awaiting the Mueller investigation. They get to use a grand jury. They have investigative tools that we don't have. Executive branch investigations are just better than congressional ones. So we found no evidence of collusion. Whether or not it exists or not, I can't speak to because I haven't interviewed the full panoply of witnesses.
Do you plan to investigate former FBI director?
And if the House Intelligence Committee had been tougher on the Russian investigation, they would have used their subpoena powers and their contempt powers to interview more witnesses. Not Michael Flynn necessarily, but all the witnesses who like, wasn't it like Donald Trump Jr. claimed some weird like attorney-client privilege because he talked to his father at the time that an attorney was in the room with them, or I mean all sorts of weird non-existent privileges. The executive privilege I mentioned before I showed the clip. So Margaret Brennan didn't do a great job there cross-examining Trey Gowdy on that. I've talked in previous weeks about how Trey Gowdy is retiring from Congress and he's looking to be appointed as a federal judge. So he's trying to pretend how tough he is on Republicans, how nonpartisan he is, even though he was like the #1 person responsible for that whole Benghazi investigation in the House Oversight Committee for all those years, just to bring down Hillary Clinton's ratings so that she could be beaten by Donald Trump. And that's one of the reasons we are where we are. And so Margaret Brennan also let Trey Gowdy get away with that. Margaret Brennan, and that's the last clip, and well, I guess Korea is part of this topic too, but these last two clips before the bonus Sandy clip are on the North-South Korea peace negotiations, and you saw some clips about that, how Trump was taking credit for that and saying, how much am I responsible? Well, all of it. And here's John Bolton in the clip I promised earlier. This is talking to Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday, and you'll see in this clip, and I've edited two things together here, he says Libya 3 times in about actually it's like 4.5 minutes, so it's almost once per minute. And what I mean is he says Libya, is he's talking about Libya as a model for North Korea getting rid of their nuclear weapons, and that's really stupid because if you want to get Kim Jong-un to get rid of his nuclear weapons, you don't want to tell him he's going to end up like Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, which is like dead on the streets after being sodomized by a crowd enraged at his many years of being a dictator. That that's exactly what Kim Jong-un doesn't want to have happen to him. Yes, Sandy, can I help you? Sandy? I don't know why Sandy's acting like this, but she's being a silly puppy and not lying down and being quiet. Anyway, I know it's because it's getting... Can you hear it? She hasn't been fed and it's getting late. I don't know if you heard that whining from the puppy. But speaking of whining, here's John Bolton, the new National Security Advisor, talking to Margaret Brennan. Oh, I'm sorry. Talking to Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday, who never asks him about why he keeps saying the word Libya when that's the worst thing to say to Kim Jong-un. Margaret Brennan also had an interview with John Bolton, didn't cross-examine him on using the word Libya multiple times in that interview, but at least later in the program had this guest Ian Bremmer on, and where they mentioned what happened to Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, but that never came up on Fox News Sunday. I think the puppy's very hungry. But here's a 4-minute, 30-second clip of John Bolton, and it includes a clip at the end that I will also criticize after we watch it together over here.
So let's talk about your position, the U.S. position going in, what the U.S. wants from Kim. Will President Trump insist that Kim give up, ship out all of his nuclear weapons, all of his nuclear fuel, all of his ballistic missiles before the U.S. makes any concessions?
Yeah, I think that's what denuclearization means. And we have very much in mind the Libya model from 2003, 2004. There are obviously differences. The Libyan program was much smaller. But that was basically the agreement that we made. And so we'll want to test North Korea in this first meeting for evidence that they have made that strategic decision. And we have history to give us some assistance on it. In 1992, the joint North-South denuclearization agreement had North Korea pledging to give up any aspect of nuclear weapons and to give up uranium enrichment and plutonium reprocessing. Now, we've got other things to talk about as well: ballistic missiles, chemical and biological weapons, the American hostages, the Japanese abductees. But starting on the nuclear side with what North Korea agreed to more than a quarter of a century ago is a pretty good place to start.
But just to pin this down, North Korea has to give up basically its whole program before the U.S. begins to relieve economic sanctions.
Yeah, I think that the maximum pressure campaign that the Trump administration has put on North Korea has, along with the politico-military pressure, has brought us to this point. I mentioned President Moon before. Just this past week, President Macron of France, Chancellor Merkel of Germany, Prime Minister Abe of Japan. The week before that, this morning, Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull of Australia have all acknowledged we are at this point because of American pressure. Relieving that pressure isn't going to make negotiation easier. It could make it harder.
What kind of time frame for North Korea to give up its weapons? How quickly would they have to do it? And is there any possibility that the U.S. would accept North Korea as a nuclear power and allow them to keep some of their infrastructure?
I don't see how that's possible. And again, the North Koreans have already agreed to this. They agreed to it in 1992 with South Korea, and they've pledged similar things since then. Now, it's also the case that they've lied about it and broken their commitments, which is one reason there's nobody in the Trump administration starry-eyed about what may happen here. But by demonstrating they've made a strategic decision to give up nuclear weapons, it would be possible to move quickly, as again, the Libya case demonstrates.
Well, when you say quickly, we're talking by the end of the year?
Well, it's a matter first of finding out just how much there is to dismantle. I mean, it's not possible to go to this meeting with a set of screwdrivers and think we're going to take it apart beginning the day after the meeting. And therefore, the full, complete, total disclosure of everything related to their nuclear weapons program with full international verification, and I think following Libya, verification by American and other inspectors could be very important here.
Now, it's certainly the case that you have never had any illusions about the Kim regime. I suspect you expected me to do what I'm about to do. Here are some of your greatest hits.
I think the only diplomatic option left is to end the regime in North Korea by effectively having the South take it over. Here's an all-purpose insult that you can use. I'll apply it to the North Koreans. Question: how do you know when the North Korean regime is lying? Answer: when their lips are moving.
Now, I got to tell folks that while we were playing those, Ambassador Bolton had a smile on your face. Who should we believe, that John Bolton or this one?
Well, you know, I'll give you the same answer I gave to Martha McCallum the day the president tweeted my nomination, when I didn't even know I had been relieved of my duties at Fox News. You know, I've said and written a lot of things over the years. I stand by every one of them. But I was a freelancer back then. I had the luxury of voicing my own opinion. That's not my job now. I'm simply an advisor. The decision maker here is the president. And I don't think really there's anything to be served by going back to those golden oldies and comparing them to what the president's position is now. My advice to him, you know, I give in private. He makes the decisions. That's how it works.
Now, a couple criticisms I have of Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday. First, I mentioned before I showed the clip that he didn't really follow up on the whole Libya. He said Libya at least 3 times in that clip. And as I said before, I showed the clip, Muammar Gaddafi in Libya gave up his nuclear program and ended up getting like sodomized by a mob and killed. And that is not a subject you really want to bring up with Kim Jong-un as to giving up his nuclear program. And then the other problem with that whole thing there is that Chris Wallace didn't mention in his introduction of John Bolton that John Bolton was a Fox News contributor all the way up to the point where he was appointed to be National Security Advisor. You saw at the end of that clip that John Bolton brought it up himself after Chris Wallace showed a couple clips from Fox News Sunday, but not from Fox News, from Fox News and Fox News Business, or Fox Business, and they could have shown a lot more clips of John Bolton being really crazy, in terms of being pro-regime change in North Korea, and I think that's why he keeps mentioning Libya, Libya, Libya. I mentioned before that on CBS's Face the Nation, Margaret Brennan had a similar interview with John Bolton where he mentioned Libya multiple times. She didn't cross-examine him on it, but when she talked to Ian Bremmer later in the show, they actually talked about how Muammar Gaddafi gave up his nuclear weapons and things didn't go well for him. That never came up on Fox News Sunday. And then the last news clip I want to show you before the bonus Sandy clip of Sandy being a very good puppy. And she's lying down and quieting down. She's not whining anymore, luckily. This is the Secretary of State Mike Pompeo clip, where he is very clear on what his mission is in North Korea, and he explains how, the first thing that the newsworthy part of this clip is Jonathan Karl over on ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos asking him about how he ended up meeting with Kim Jong-un, because Trump mentioned in a press briefing or a press conference earlier this week, or was it on Fox and Friends? I can't even remember. But Trump mentioned that he wasn't scheduled to meet with Kim Jong-un, but somehow it happened, and he gives the details and talks about his mission, and well, there's more to this clip, which I will discuss with you. The final clip for tonight, after we watch it together over here.
The president said that the meeting between the two of you was entirely unplanned and it lasted for more than an hour. How did it come about?
Well, I was there on a mission. I was aiming to achieve the goals the president set forward to me. It became clear that I was going to get the chance to meet with Kim Jong-un to discuss some of the details, but most importantly, to take a read on whether there was an opportunity here for our two countries to achieve this. And when I came back, I reported into the president the discussion. It was a productive one. There remains a great deal of work to do, but we at least have an opportunity here to do something that's incredibly important.
As the CIA director, you obviously spent a lot of time, and the CIA has spent years of resources on trying to read the North Korean leadership, trying to understand Kim Jong-un. What did you come away learning about him in that meeting?
Well, anytime you get a chance to meet face-to-face with someone, you get a better read about what they're thinking, whether they're really prepared to do something that is historic and different. And we've got a long history in negotiating with North Korea. Repeatedly, they have taken actions only to find that those promises proved false or unworthy, or they were incapable of achieving them. My goal was to try and identify if there was a real opportunity there. I believe there is. Who knows how the ultimate discussions will go? There's a lot of work left to do, but I'm very hopeful that the conditions that have been set by President Trump give us this chance.
The president said, do you think he's really had a change of heart on this? I mean, if you look at Kim Jong-un, this is somebody who assassinated his uncle right after coming into power, poisoned his half-brother, did more to advance North Korea's nuclear facilities, its missile capabilities than his father, did more to advance the military than his grandfather. Do you really think that he has had a change of heart on this and he is ready to give up the pride of that country right now, its nuclear program?
Kim Jong-un's going to have to make a decision. he's going to have to make a big decision. Does he want the pressure campaign to continue? Does he want President Trump to continue to place him in the location that he finds himself today? Or is he looking for something big and bold and different, something that hasn't happened before? I don't know which way it will go. As the president has said, only time will tell. But we have a mission set. We have an obligation to engage in diplomatic discourse, to try and find a peaceful solution so that Americans aren't held at risk by Kim Jong-un and his nuclear arsenal. That's the mission. That's the goal. Only time will tell if we're going to be able to achieve it.
Only time will tell. I don't know. That's a phrase that's pretty meaningless. They were at least self-evident. I don't know. But I still think that new Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, in his first Sunday morning news analysis show interview since becoming Secretary of State, was more measured and reserved in his responses than John Bolton, who, I don't know, maybe it's his mustache, but something about him just scares me. You can let me know what you think down in the comment section. That was my last clip for the night, other than the bonus Sandy clip, the 20-second Sandy clip I'm about to show you. Sandy's lying down there quietly. And so I think I've shown you some good clips here of both the... oh, I said Sandy too many times. I'm starting to rile her up. But she was a good puppy when I was about to start the show. And as I promised, here's the bonus Sandy clip at the end, which I will watch with you and talk about with you before I say goodbye at the end of the show. Over. Good puppy. Who's a good puppy? Yes. Oh, yes, such a good puppy. Such a good puppy. Ready for the show? Okay, lie down, lie down. And actually, you saw that was an edited clip because there was like 20 seconds in the middle when I was trying to get Sandy to lie down, and you probably didn't want to watch 20 seconds of Sandy just holding in place while I said, lie down, lie down, lie down. So anyway, you've got to see how she likes to have her nose stroked and likes to be told she's a good puppy. That's the bonus Sandy clip. I hope you appreciate the bonus Sandy clip. The other dozen clips I picked out from the Sunday morning news analysis shows and Real Time with Bill Maher and the Michelle Wolf White House Correspondents' Dinner, which I insist was funny and which I insist was speaking truth to power, and it was definitely vulgar, but not as vulgar as President Donald Trump, and I stand by my endorsement of Michelle Wolf's performance at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. You can let me know what you think about the clips I picked out, about Korea, about Donald Trump, about Michelle Wolf, whatever you want to talk about down in the comment section. And until I have time to make an edited, produced video, this might be the week, because I think some of my ACLU commitments are finally going to die down a little. I spent all this time on a debate between the district attorney candidates, and only the challenger showed up, and between the sheriff candidates in my county, and only 2 of the 3 challengers showed up. No incumbent showed up, but that was last Friday. Actually, whatever. If you want to see any video of that debate that I helped organize and that I live streamed, you can let me know about that in the comments section. Or maybe I'll have time to make an edited, produced video about some other topic this week. But if not, I will be back next week and every Sunday for the foreseeable future with my Liberal Viewer Sunday live clip roundups. And until then, or until some other reason I have to upload video, I guess I will be seeing all of you around the internet.